No. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Good evening, everyone. We will now be starting our Bhagavad Gita class, and we'll be discussing verse 230. So we'll always start off with a kirtan, so please join along if you'd like. We'll be singing Jai Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Everyone Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Everyone Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Once more, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokulandan Nanda Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. Thank you everyone so much for being here this evening, and we're in the lead up to the Janmashtami festivals. It's really exciting times. Just a couple more days until Krishna's birthday. So yes, everyone here and online, please give me your blessing so that I can share something of value. So yes, as mentioned, we'll be discussing verse 2.30, which is up here on the screen as well. And if you want to find it online, it's just vedabase.io. It's chapter 2, verse 30. So we'll start. Everyone can please repeat after me. I'll be saying the invocation prayers, which they're so that we can get blessings from the acharyas and Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sijivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Sha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinu Bandhu Chikatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanda Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishubhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhesya Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashitya Deshatarne. So again, it's verse 230, which is up there. I'll just quickly read the English translation first, so when we are reciting the Sanskrit, we can also meditate on the meaning as well. So the translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada is, O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. So I'm going to say the Sanskrit, and if you can repeat after me. Dehi nityam avadyoyam Dehe sarvasya bharata Tasmat sarvani bhutani Na tvam sochitam aharhashi Dehi nityam avadyoyam Dehe sarvasya bharata Tasmat sarvani bhutani Na tvam sochitam aharhashi. One note last time. Dehi nityam avadyoyam Dehe sarvasya bharata Tasmat sarvani bhutani Na tvam sochitam arhasi. Translation. O descendant of Bharata, he who dwells in the body can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any living being. So I'm going to read the purport now by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord now concludes the chapter of instruction on the immutable spirit soul. In describing the immortal soul in various ways, Lord Krishna establishes that the soul is immortal and the body is temporary. Therefore, Arjuna as a Kshatriya should not abandon his duty out of fear that his grandfather and teacher, Bhishma and Drona, will die in the battle. On the authority of Sri Krishna, one has to believe that there is a soul different from the material body, not that there is no such thing as soul, or that living symptoms develop at a certain stage of material maturity resulting from the interaction of chemicals. Though the soul is immortal, violence is not encouraged, but at the same time of war, it is not discouraged when there is an actual need for it. That need must be justified in terms of the sanction of the Lord and not capriciously. Okay. Okay, so we'll now just discuss the purport and this verse and a little bit of the context and have a little discussion in that way. So first it says here at the beginning of the purport that the Lord now concludes the chapter of instruction on the immutable spirit soul. So we spent a big portion of chapter 2 is, the very basic instruction of, what the soul actually is, who we really are, which is the spirit soul, and that the spirit soul is actually different from the body. So, this verse is the kind of conclusion of that instruction by Krishna. So we'll spend a little bit of the beginning of this talk just discussing what Krishna has said so far in relation to this, because it's always good to recap that instruction, because no matter how many times we hear it, it's one thing to hear and another thing to actually live that, we are this spirit soul. So up until this point, we see that, Arjuna has declared that he doesn't want to fight. And as said here, that it's especially because, on the other side of the battle was his seniors and his most respected, like Bhishma Dev and Drona, and they're on the opposition. And the reason he says he doesn't want to fight them, and he has very, very valid reasons, is because they're great souls, which they absolutely are. They're his teachers, so in Vedic culture, the teachers are the most respected because they've imparted that knowledge onto you, and of course they are his superiors. And so he says, Krishna, I'm not fighting. But then earlier and on the chapter, he's completely bewildered, and he completely surrenders to Krishna, and he says, my mind is bewildered, please instruct me what to do. And in this way, Krishna actually tells him, give up this weakness of give up this weakness of heart and actually fight. He gives him many reasons for why he should fight, including, the fact that he's a Kshatriya, it's his duty to fight. He's actually fighting for a very just reason, and as Srila Prabhupada says here, that, violence is not encouraged when there's actual need for it, and, when it comes to the protection of others, it must be needed, and because it's Arjuna's duty, Krishna's telling him to fight, so that's one of the reasons. One of the other reasons, he says that, give up this weakness of heart, and you shouldn't, there's no reason to lament for the living or for the dead. And in that explanation of, there's no reason to lament, he actually gives other instructions of around the soul. So firstly, he says that actually, by fighting in this war, you aren't actually killing, because all beings are eternal. And so where's this discussion of the soul actually comes in. So in the previous verses, there's a lot of description giving around the soul, so I'll just recap some of those. So firstly, it said that, all of us are eternal beings without beginning or end. So Krishna says, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So even though during this war many will die, and you'll be Bhishma Dev, Drona will be there, but actually we're all eternal, and no one's actually going to die. He talks about the soul, which changes from one body to the next. He says the body goes from, just like the body goes from, childhood to youth to old age, in the same way the body changes body from one life to the next. Then Krishna is saying that, actually the soul, it's, the body is ever changing and unenduring. The soul is eternal. So actually two completely opposite qualities of the material body, which is what we're always, who we think we are, versus the eternality of the soul. Then he says the soul pervades the whole body. So actually you can have a completely capable and functioning body, but if there's no soul in there, then the body is of no use. And it's the soul's presence, that spark, that actually is the engine to the body. And then Krishna describes the soul in many other ways, which we'll talk about next. One other thing that Krishna says in the midst of this describing the soul is actually that whatever you're experiencing, this distress, it's not actually your soul that's experiencing. It's the activities that pertaining to the body and not the soul. So the experience of this happiness and distress that you're feeling, it comes from, it's perceived in the senses, it's perceived in the mind, right? So even this distress that he's feeling, it's not Arjuna, it's not his soul. And on that note, three really things that I've been trying to meditate on is actually when it comes to the soul, and I suppose what Krishna's also trying to say to Arjuna is that you being in this war and killing, you're not actually the doer. Okay, so Arjuna isn't the doer in a sense that he's an instrument in the war, right? If you look at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, especially chapter 1, there's so many symbols of victory that we already know that the war of Kurukshetra is going to be won by the Pandavas, firstly because Krishna's on their side, but also there's so many signs and symptoms to show that that's going to happen. But Arjuna is just used there as a instrument to actually win the war, and he gets all the glory. So in one sense, Arjuna is very special, and he's the one that's been chosen to do this. But what we take away from this is that he's not the actual doer. And that applies to us all as well. Whenever we are working in whatever capacity, we must know that we're not the doers, and it is our duty to perform all the right actions and to do the best of our abilities, but we have to relinquish the fruits to Krishna. Whatever happens. So it's actually, then the second one is that we as a soul, we are not the qualities of our mind. We might think that, I'm this, I'm naive, I'm kind, I'm, whatever qualities. But again, that is not us as soul. That is the qualities of the mind. And then he also says that, you are not the experiencer. So through that verse where he's saying, happiness and distress, saying that you are experiencing all of this on a mental level. So just a few recapping verses prior, which, kind of get us to this verse. So one thing I wanted to ask you all is, if you have read Bhagavad Gita, or even if you flick onto your phone and go to Veda base, what are some of the qualities that that Krishna actually describes the soul as in some of the earlier verses? I mean, if you look through carefully, in which I was noting all them down, there's so many adjectives which I was really surprised by. So I'd love to hear some of them for those of you who are sitting here. Some of the qualities which Krishna lists of the soul. I'll start off. We already talked about it being eternal and unborn. So any more? A wonder. Yes. So he says the word exactly that Prabhupada converts it to is amazing. Actually, there's a verse where he uses the word amazing 3 times in a row. The soul is perceived to be amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. Anyone else? The all-knowing, did you say? Yeah, exactly. Yes. I'm trying to think where have I got it, but yes, all-knowing. Yes. So actually, the soul's quality, Krishna is Satchitananda, which means the soul is also Satchitananda, and Chit is all-knowing. So yes, that is the quality of the soul as well. So it's like, when we're told by someone and we can't make a decision, and then say, okay, no, but the answer is all within you, and it is all within it, because the soul is all-knowing, and Krishna is also Paramatma in the heart, so is guiding us in that way as well. So yes, thank you.
I believe that we get the best learning from Bhagavad Gita so that we can follow that in everyday life. And my favorite chapter is the second chapter, where we learn that, like, if we see today's world, dharma is lacking at so many places. So we need to teach our children, especially the young generation, because of the lack of dharma. We can see that there is lack of coexistence also. So in that chapter, when the Krishna said that ahimsa is parmo dharma, but you also need to do violence for preservation of dharma. So that's my favorite thing as per today's circumstances.
Yes, thank you so much. And do you have any reflection on what Krishna is saying about one of the qualities of the soul?
One of the quality of the soul, like when our body, we can feel what I learned from Bhagavad Gita, that we feel that every day we can see the body is changing.
Mm-hmm.
We say that in Bhagavad Gita, we change, the soul remains same,
Yes.
but the body is changing
Yes.
as per your karma. But we can feel that in this life also.
Yes.
When we were born, we don't remember, but those who witness us, they can see clearly, our parents, that
Thank you. Yes, exactly. So the some of the adjectives used in this chapter is ever existing. So as you said, primeval, indestructible. So no matter what happens, and then the verse is also talked about can't be destroyed by fire. The soul can't be destroyed by water. This that. So it's indestructible. It's eternal. It's unborn, immutable, unbreakable, insoluble, so it can't be divided anymore. It's everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, invisible, inconceivable, immutable. So these are some of the adjectives that are used about the soul. And, well, we are the soul. So it's just quite interesting that if we really believed that and if we really imbibed that in our lives, the question is, like, what would that really change? Like, what would we do differently? If you really believed that you are all-knowing, if you really believed that you are eternal, unborn, like, how would you change the way that you live today? Because if you think about it, we live with the perception of the body, right? The body is diseased, it's going to die, it's always changing, it's giving us pains. And because of all of that, we're under so much fear, we're in so much distress. But it's quite interesting because we're none of that. And that's what Krishna and Srila Prabhupada saying here, that we're none of those things. We're actually quite the contrary, the soul, which are exactly all the opposite qualities, right? And if we could live with that in mind, that would change so much for us. Yeah. Yeah, and some points that I've read, we would, if we really believed all those things, we wouldn't be so associated by the qualities of our mind, the distress that our mind is always giving us. We wouldn't have so much doubt. We wouldn't be so attached to the things that we are, because we would know that we're Satchitananda. So one thing I didn't see when I was reading the rest of the chapters, the exact verse of the soul being Satchitananda, and I was thinking, where does that come in? But here at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, every morning we sing the Brahma Samhita. We sing Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha. So this is where every morning we're singing. This is actually describing Krishna as, Krishna who's known as Govinda. He's the supreme person. He's an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He's the origin of all. He has no origin, and he's the prime cause of all causes. And so I say this because we know that in verse 15, 17, Krishna says, Mame vamso jiva bhuta, which means that all these living entities, they are my parts and parcels. So if Krishna is Satchit Ananda, so Sat means eternal, Chit means full of knowledge, and Ananda means bliss, then by default, if we are his parts and parcels, we are also Satchitananda, right? So in a sense that, we're all Sat, so we're eternal, but it's the body which is ever-changing and unenduring, and we're associating constantly with that. The soul is full of knowledge, but currently we're all in ignorance. Our soul is covered by different layers of ignorance, and until that ignorance isn't cleared, we cannot actually see the truth. We can't actually access that full knowledge that we actually have. And then Ananda is blissfulness. So, actually, we are all meant to feel this bliss, which is why we're always seeking for happiness, because in our eternal nature, that's who we actually are. But in this material world, there is really no such thing as bliss. At best, in this material world, there's some relief or respite from distress, which we consider to be happiness. And the reason for that is because in the material world, you have the three conditions called Adhyatmika, Adibodhika, and Adidevika. And in Adhyatmika, it's, we're constantly we're tortured by the miserable conditions on the account of the body and the mind. Adidevika is by the demigods, by the the conditions, like say the weather or the state of the earth or whatever it might be. And Adhibodhika is with, I think I've got mine messed up, Bodhika. Sorry, can someone remind me? Sorry? About other living entities, yes. So we're always tortured by sort of one of the three, and so in that way we're not able to access that bliss which we are, because we're always living in the body. So it's basically there to remind us that as a spirit soul, because we're part and parcel of Krishna, but here in the material world we're actually trying to live separately from Krishna. And it's said that just like a leg without a body is of no use, and in that way, if we're separate from our source, we're also of no use. We can't actually access these qualities which are so inherent to us, Satchitananda. And so the only way for us to actually truly access these qualities which are inherent to us is actually to come back and reunite with our source, which is Krishna. And only when we're reunited in that way can we actually access all of these qualities. And unfortunately, it's because of our own desires that we're separated from our source. And for us to actually be separated from our source, Krishna had to create these conditions of the material world, and which means covering of who we really are. Because unless we're covered, we can't really create this false condition of being absent from Krishna, because the reality is that we are part and parcel of him. So in that endeavor of actually separating us from the Lord, he's had to put us in this material energy which covers who we really are. And so there's different layers of coverings as described in the Shastra. So around the soul there's consciousness. Around that there's the mind. Secondly, it's the ahankar, the ego. Then it's the mind, then it's the intelligence. And so over time, through spiritual practices like chanting the Mahamantra, through engaging in scriptures, of course, a lot of mercy is needed by the spiritual masters, we can slowly start to clear away those coverings. And it's when we're able to clear those coverings that we're able to access who we really are and access these qualities which are so inherent to us, and in that way be blissful like we are made to be. So that was just a little bit on one of the soul's qualities, and this how, because Krishna is Satchitananda, we are also. So really what these verses are trying to show is that we have to believe that the body, the soul is different from the body. And one important thing which Srila Prabhupada talks about on this verse in one of his lectures that he gave in London is that it's not just the human beings that have a soul, but it's every living entity. And so as we know from the scriptures that there's 8.4 million forms of life. And it's all of those 8.4 million who actually have a soul. So that includes all the animals, it includes the trees, all animate and inanimate objects. So I know in a lot of faiths, there's this recognition that there is a spirit in human beings, but there's none in animals, and therefore, animal slaughter or meat eating is allowed. But actually, here, because of the word, I think it's Dehe Sarvasya Bharata, which says every living entity has a soul. And in that way, we really have to respect and know that it's every, even the animals, the trees, they have that. But the reason they slightly different from us because their level of consciousness is different from us. And as human beings, we have the highest level of consciousness. And so we really should make the most of this human form of life to actually clear all of that ignorance that I was just mentioning and actually get in touch with who we really are as spirit soul. The other thing to note is also what Srila Prabhupada was saying was that the source of the body is also material. So even now we're talking about, the soul is different from the material body, but actually even the material body is still Krishna's energy. It's just his inferior energy. So the spirit soul is also his, that's his spiritual energy, his very superior energy, and the material nature that we all, the mind, all of that, that's all part of his inferior material energy. So we still have to acknowledge that everything here, even though it's material, it's truth, it's reality, it's Krishna's energy, and so we still treat all of that with respect. And so Krishna says that I'm the seed-giving father. So he's the father, the spiritual soul. The mother is material nature, and obviously Krishna is the superior. So that leads to the next point, that just because we aren't the body, Srila Prabhupada says that doesn't mean that violence is encouraged. So violence, not just in a very typical sense of harming others, but it also means harming ourselves. Violence to ourselves is not condoned, because this very body is also part of Krishna's energy. But actually what we'll talk about next is that actually this body is a vehicle for us to get out of this material world, and it actually will aid us. So we do also have to take care of this material body as well. So, because we're talking about this body and we're talking about spirit, soul, the next topic is around the value of this human body in this life. So actually, yes, whilst, the spirit, our spirit trying to look after the spirit soul and trying to connect and discover who we are, we also really have to value this human body, and also the kind of physical and the material aspects of it, because this human form is really, really rare to achieve. And so actually Lord Brahma says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, I didn't actually put the source here, which I'm really sorry, but I think it is from the 3rd canto. Lord Brahma says, "My dear demigods, the human form of life is such importance that we also desire to have such life. For in the human form, one can attain perfect religious truth and knowledge. If one is in this human form of life, does not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his abode, it is to be understood that he is very much affected by the influence of external nature." So even Brahma, who they have a very amazing condition of life in the higher planets. They have all the facilities, incredible intelligence, they have everything. But even he is saying that him and the demigods desire this human form of life. Because actually it's in this condition where, we're not too comfortable and we're not too degraded, that we can actually attain transcendental knowledge and religious perfection. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport for that verse, that is, the human form of life is a great boon because it is most suitable boat for crossing over the nescience, the nescient ocean. Of course, the spiritual master is needed because he's the captain in the boat, and the scriptures are the favorable winds for floating over the ocean of nescience. So he says that the human being who has not taken advantage of these facilities in this life is committing suicide because they are losing their life to the influence of illusory energy. So, yeah, just to take a second to think about that. We're all very, very, very lucky to have this human form. And as said, we could be in 8.4 other million forms. But we, of the 8.4 million, have been, given this human form, which, as said even by Brahma, is the perfect form of life to realize who we really are. And so it really means that we should be dedicating more and more time to our spiritual practice and to really use this opportunity to actually go back to Godhead, because you never know what's planned for the next life. Sorry? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Again, on the same one, on Canto 11, chapter 9, verse 29, it said, Krishna saying this, I think, to Uddhava, that after many, many births and deaths, one achieves the rare human form of life, which, although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. Thus, a sober human being should quickly endeavor for the ultimate perfection of life, as long as his body, which is always subject to death, has not fallen down and died. After all, sense gratification is available even in the most abominable species of life, whereas Krishna consciousness is possible only for a human being. So all the things that we probably spend our time doing, eating, sleeping, etc., all of the species of life can do that. But what's different to us in this human form of life is this ability, we have this level of consciousness, the mind, the level of intellect that we have that allows us to actually break free and actually realize who we are as spirit soul. So really, I guess the point of all of this is to say that yes, we are spirit soul, and that's what we want to realize, but that doesn't mean that we, as Srila Prabhupada says, that doesn't mean that violence is condoned, and obviously not just violence in a sense of war, but violence to ourselves and committing suicide, like Srila Prabhupada says, by not following the spiritual path in this lifetime. So we do definitely have to look after this human life, ourselves on a mental platform, on a physical platform, on an emotional platform, and we should do this nicely. But a balance needs to be struck. We don't want to do it so that we're distracted from our real needs, the soul's needs, and who we are. But we also don't want to neglect the bodies because we think, oh, it's material, it's an obstruction, it's inferior. Because as the verse that I just read, it's actually the body that's used as a boat to overcome this condition of ours. So I think Srila Prabhupada also says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he says the very thing that traps us here in the material world can actually be the very same thing that liberates us as well if we use it in the right way. So our body is the thing that traps us here, but we also use our body to get out of it as well. And very lastly, I just want to share this point around, I quite like the analogy of the chariot of the soul, right? So it's actually the material body is seen as the chariot. And I think this comes from, I can't remember exactly where, but I think it's also said in the Bhagavad Gita, in one of Srila Prabhupada's purports, where it says, the individual is the passenger of the chariot of the material body, the intelligence is the driver, the mind is the driving instrument or reins, and the senses are the horses. The self is thus the enjoyer or sufferer in the association of the mind and senses. So it is understood by great thinkers. It's really interesting. So again, just reiterating this point that we do need this body in this age to actually help us to liberate ourselves. So the intelligence is supposed to direct the mind. Now, if our intelligence is flawed and has got a bunch of garbage in it, then it's going to misdirect the mind. However, if we strengthen our intelligence by reading Shastra, by listening to the gurus, by purifying it through chanting the mantra, then the intelligence can direct the mind in the right way. And it's the intelligence which is the driver, and it's the mind which are the reins of the horses. So in this case, we control the mind, which are the reins and the horses, by the intelligence, which is the driver. So the very thing, really the idea is not to use the body for sense gratification, but to use it as a tool for helping us to get liberation, tool for connection to Krishna, a tool for bhakti, and a tool to really realize who we are, and to realize all those adjectives which Krishna describes the soul to actually be in its true sense. So I think I've come to the end now. And I think maybe one thing I'll touch on here is when Srila Prabhupada actually says that we have to take this as fact. So on the authority of Sri Krishna, one has to believe that there is a soul different from the material body. So some may ask, what is the evidence of this? Where is the scientific evidence, etc.? But by Vedic Vedic way of learning is deductive, and it's actually taking it from the authority of Shastra. So in the Western way of I guess, discovery. It's that you take a hypothesis and then you kind of build an experiment around that to actually prove your hypothesis. But as you can see already from that, that's very biased. And so actually that kind of Western way is very simplified, and you're dividing the whole, you're separating existence into like little parts, and it's a very isolated experience. But in the Vedic way, the way that we do that is actually we take the facts from the Shastra, and then we put a little bit of faith in there, and then we go out there and we actually apply that principle, and we actually experience what Krishna is actually saying here, and then that creates a loop of faith. So again, Srila Prabhupada is here just saying that, take what is here in Shastra, put a bit of faith in there, go out there and actually apply those principles and see how they actually work for us. And with the soul, there's just so many evidences from like people who have gone into comas, or people who have had past life regressions that can actually see these truths. And there's so many people that once they've actually, gone through a death experience, or have come out of a coma, that their life is completely transformed. And that's because for a moment they actually experience some of these truths which Krishna is talking about there. So obviously we don't have to go through a coma or something to experience that, but generally it's that kind of Vedic way of learning, that we take everything on the account and the authority of Krishna. So yes, I will conclude there and just see if anyone has any questions or comments or corrections. Yes. Yes. Even beauty than a human form. Yeah. So why would they desire a human form? Obviously down here you can, we're exposed to, because we're in the so-called middle planet. Mm-hmm. So we have some distress and some happiness. Whereas the demigods probably, they have great facility for enjoyment, so more difficult to. Yeah. Why? Because they have the body. They have Lord Brahma, who's actually the head of our Sampradaya. He's all knowledge. He's with them. He's their leader. Why would they? And they have perfect knowledge in terms of intelligence, is more perfect, better than ours. Why would they desire human form? Because their form is already perfect, if you ask me. Well, we wouldn't say their form is perfect because they're still in the material world, right? Yes, but it's better than ours. Yes, it's better than ours. I think the way that I've heard it is because when we're too comfortable and everything is too perfect, the desire to actually go back to Godhead is less. And then obviously if we're too distressed, then you can't really ask a distressed person to also go on that journey of going back to Godhead. So we're kind of in that, this life actually helps cultivate that desire. And it's not to say that people, like the Brahmas of this world, don't go back. Of course they do, because it's said that, in our first lifetime we were all Brahmas, and from there you can either go lower or go above. But it's just that this is the most, I suppose, conducive form. So it seems okay, but it's the prospect of you becoming enlightened is very, very rare, as you can see. How many people take into spiritual practice? Yeah. Minus one something %. So that's my concern about that. But we kind of know that to get bhakti, the main way to get bhakti is not through intelligence. Like you could have someone that knows all the scriptures in and out, can remember that, can intellectually process everything, but bhakti comes from it's the mercy of Krishna, it's the mercy of the spiritual masters, right? So that's only a limb of it, that intelligence.
But demigods are already in the mode of goodness, so it should be very, very easy for them to make.
But the mode of goodness is also still material.
But
It helps to get.
but you only can come to spiritual understanding properly if you're in the mode of goodness.
Yeah,
You're
definitely.
already in a advantageous position by being in the mode of goodness.
Yes.
Why would they want human form? Which is like full of ignorance.
But I think when you say that, what comes to mind is also there are a lot of human beings who are also very much in the mode of goodness. They're very nice people doing a lot of good work, but they could still be atheistic, right? So that's still not enough. And so I think the point comes is in this human form of life, the desire to connect can be very ripe, which I think is independent of all things like intelligence and the mode of goodness, which is also material. That's just my 2 cents. Maybe you have to ask someone who's an expert at this.
I don't know why I'm exploring this. It's just the demigods are already servants of the Lord. It's assessment. They actually are servants of the Lord already.
Yes.
And so they can accept the highest truth where they are.
We also have Lord Chaitanya's mercy as human beings, right? Which none of the demigods have. And Lord Chaitanya freely gives away his mercy. So the demigods don't have that. And actually we are in the golden age within the 5 to 10,000 years. So we also have access to that.
We have to get a chance to enlighten ourselves through practice, sadhana.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because already they are enlightened.
Yeah. And actually being in the mode of goodness is also very comfortable because everything is very comfortable, you're very happy, you're doing it. But here we have enough distress and traumas to be like, something is not right here.
Yeah, it can prompt us to make inquiry.
Yes.
It can.
Yes, yes.
Not always, because some people are in distress and they still like
Yeah,
verse to God,
definitely. Yeah. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so we'll conclude there. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and I hope you'll be coming for the festivities over the weekend to celebrate Lord Krishna's birthday. And thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Kushi? Like the herb? Kushi? Kushi grass?
No,
No.
Kushi. Kushi, like happiness in Hindi.
Kushi. Nice name. Thank you for your class.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
playing the instrument.
No, it was very useful to hear from you. I like also the adjectives that you collected from the chapter about the soul.
That was nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, it was interesting also the point that you mentioned. So thank you very much. My name is Chiara. So I'm here only for some days and then I will go back to Mutati. Yes,
Where in Italy?
Where in Italy? In Torino. Torino, the northwest.
Half the time already, right? Half the time now.
Oh.
Hare Krishna. व्रजजनप्रियतं बालमुकुन्दं व्रजजनप्रियतं बालमुकुन्दं राधारमणं हरे हरे राधारमणं हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम